Hi. So one thing that I want to emphasize that we talked about the previous slide was also regarding this variable argument list, variable length argument list. So once you want to actually supply an argument list with a variable number of arguments, then we can use this standard args keyword. This keyword actually describes this is already set in the language for a variable length of arguments. So it is read as a list essentially, and then essentially now you can go through the list to understand like each of the arguments and then parse them separately. So here this is the example that we saw previously. So here the proc name is sum, which actually returns the sum of set of integers, and then we don't specify like all the integers separately. We just specify args as the keyword. So inside this proc we set basically the s to 0, and then we can actually parse this args as a list. So for each I $args, we just increment s with whatever the value of $I. So and then we return that the sum basically s. So here a simple example, sum 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. The answer will be 15 because every time s is incremented by that much. So it's 1 plus 2 plus 3 plus 4 plus 5. If you say sum 10, 20, 15, then the answer will be 45. And then if you just say sum without any arguments, then it returns the 0 itself, and that's why we get a 0 here. So this kind of using a variable length is very useful because now we can extend this concept to many other things. So let's see one way to extend this concept. So oftentimes you see in procedures you don't want like positional arguments and you want non-positional arguments. What do I mean by that? So a positional argument, for example, for this proc named foo, we have an argument 1, argument 2, and it needs to be exactly specified when we call this procedure. If you miss it, then it won't be proper. For example, in this one, it's actually like I purposefully wrote this way. So I hope you remember this format actually, where when you specify an argument and another value inside the braces, that is actually the default. If you don't specify, then that's what it takes the value of. So here say like arg1, arg2, you need to specify exactly in this order, otherwise this function will fail. So now let's look at the non-positional argument. Non-positional argument we can say like the same thing like in any order. Only thing is we prepend with arg1 dash arg1 and then give the arg1, and dash arg2 give the arg2. You can write like foo dash arg2 and then some value, and dash arg1 value 2. This is also possible because now it doesn't matter where you specify these values, since you are prepending with the arg, it knows like what exactly to put in. So how do we write these kind of procedure? This is one of the curious examples essentially, like this is what you will be seeing more and more in real world problems. So the way to do this this kind of procedure is as follows. So here a simple example, the same procedure sum with the keyword arguments. Now this is, as you know, it is a list, and this list is essentially like now it will be like this, basically like the arg1, arg2, all these things are there. So I am assuming that you will be specifying like -1 and the first number, and then -2 the second number, things like that. Now you can actually inside the program you can look for those keywords, and then you can mark those things exactly as is. Here it's a simple increment of s with whatever the next value is, but this could be a complex program right here. And then once you write this program here, and then same thing for each of these $I values, like if it is 2 then do something, 3 then do something, things like that. Once you have that and then you return, actually now you don't have to specify, like I mean if you have like say 3 numbers, you can specify in any order, -1 and then first number, -2 second number, -3 third number. This is one way to specify, or you can just say like -3 the first number, -2 second number, and then -1 the third number. So basically like in this kind of a method, actually the procedure call itself, or the way that you specify the arguments does not matter. You can get actually the results with any kind of order that you can impose on. So that is mainly like I mean one of the things with this positional and non-positional. So you can use this array concept to convert the positional arguments into non-positional arguments. Okay. And one more thing is here, instead of using if, you can also use the switch command. I hope you remember the switch command. The switch command is essentially also like doing similar kind of thing, where you can use like it's equivalent to a multiple if command. So another application for these kind of this args concept is you can use this to also extend the procedure to add documentation. For example, the help commands and also the manual pages you can easily extend and add those commands into the into your ticket procedures. So again, I think these are like very useful and very helpful way to do this basically. Some tickle environments provide like libraries that already contain these extensions to add the documentation, the help commands. For example, in the Synopsys tickle environment, you get like a couple of things. One is the parse proc arguments, and also procedure or proc attributes. So once you set that proc attributes, that pretty much you can use it for describing your help commands and manual pages. And then the proc that that one is also like fairly simple to use essentially. The way to use will be just give like there are like few fields that you need to describe on the procedure attributes, which can be considered as attributes, and then that's what will be used to process or to define that attributes. So mainly like I mean you can specify the procedure, it's the command, it's also called like define proc attributes, and you can specify your procedure name followed by -info, and then that info will have so basically like the define procedure attributes, and then it will specify, you can specify the procedure name, and then you can specify -info, and then you can specify a string which actually contains the information to display, and then you can also like do some command groups, and these command groups can be the arguments that you are defining, and then here you can also define arguments, and then this one will be like, I mean, what kind of arguments it will have, that is args, and then basically like, I mean, what is the help command that it will show, and then what kind of uh, type of argument it is, and then this you can describe for all of them, and then once you have this, actually this itself is a group. So once you define this whole thing, this can be used as the documentation. So once anyone like, I mean, wants to write the uh, um, write in the help procedure, or any type of arguments, or any type of help procedure or the manual pages, they can use this command to describe that, and then it will be together with the procedure. Usually you have the procedure, you write the procedure basically with the body, and then at the end you will add the procedure attributes, and then once you have the attributes, then now the tickle interpreter can actually take the whole thing and then parse it, and if you are just calling the procedure -help, it will display the help information from the defined proc attributes. So I think this is another way, like, I mean, another key learning thing. So I want to also like give you the basic rules in tickle, and then basically like, I mean, this will give you a good framework when you start doing your tickle programming. So rule number 1, this we saw earlier, white space separates command name and each of the arguments. So when we do the commands, essentially like it's command, then followed by white space, then R1 space R2, etc., etc. So this is one thing that I want you to understand, and then the other thing is also like, I mean, new lines and the semicolons separate commands. So you have command 1, which is all of these arguments, and then command 2 will be in the next line, or you can say command 1 and then semicolon and then command 2. So now the question is, if one of these arguments itself has a blank space, then how do we or a new line, how do we how do you write that? So in that case, essentially like, I mean, we need to use the grouping. So the grouping is essentially through the quotes or through the braces. So now let's see, like, I mean, how that is done. So that comes to the tickle rule number 2. The rule number 2 is on grouping. So number 1 is this curly braces. This prevents all substitutions by tickle interpreter. So these two are very important. Prevents substitutions and tickle interpreter. So as you recall, the way that tickle is done is we have the tickle interpreter and then followed by parser. So all the commands first go through the tickle interpreter. It is interpreted into like multiple words, and then that is sent to the parser, and then the parser actually understands what the command is and then what is needed for that command. So one thing to note is essentially like this once you start the group with the brace, it groups all characters until a matching another brace is found. And it also like prevents all the substitution. So like now let's look at this particular command while we started the brace. As you know, like the while has um, 2 arguments. This is argument 1, argument 2. The one is usually a condition, and then argument 2 is the body. So this condition we say basically like expression $I plus $j less than or equal to 10, then do this. While this is less than 10, keep doing this body. Do you think this program will work? Why or why not? So here you look at this one, basically there is a command substitution right here, and since we are using a curly brace, this prevents all the command substitution. So that means that once this is passed to the while is passed into the tickle interpreter, it does not return anything. It just returns this whole thing. So this will not work. You need to actually like do this separately and then put it inside. So that's one of the rules. So now let's go to rule number 3. Rule number 3 is essentially like use the quotes for weak grouping. Here substitutions are allowed by the tickle interpreter. It groups all characters until a matching quote is found. One thing to note is there is no nesting of quotes, so you cannot say like quote and start something like from $X plus then you get another start and then $Y and then end this. This does not work because up to here it is taken as 1 and then this quote and quote is taken as the next one. So your $Y is left with nothing. So the nesting does not work in these kind of rules. So this is another key thing that I want you to keep in mind. Now let's look at the next rule. The next rule is the / substitution. This is used to quote special characters essentially. So here you can see one interesting program. While foo, you have a command arg1, arg2, return, and here you see that basically like the new line is actually escaped with this this / so / and then the new line. So what do you think this will happen? So this when it executes this command, this / and the new line is replaced with just a blank space. So this is as good as saying command arg1 arg2 space arg2. So that's how this will work, and then you can see that actually like for the when we start the curly braces, we don't use escape new line. Essentially the reason for this is once you start the braces, the command interpreter groups everything inside that inside the 2 braces, or basically like it groups everything until a matching brace is formed. So that means that basically these are automatically grouped into a single argument. So we don't have to really do anything for that. And then here the tricky part is basically like the command interpreter may group everything and then sends it to the parser, and then the parser first of all understands the command, and basically like that it knows that it has 2 arguments, it completes that command, and then it also sends this thing back to the interpreter, which is basically a return command to return the value. So this is the backslash substitution. Now the rule number 5 is the variable substitution. We saw this also, like I mean, in the first lecture or the second lecture actually. The dollar causes the variable substitution, and here the dollar and the variable name are replaced by the value of the variable. So whenever you say like $x, and then it finds what is the value of this x, and then it replaces $x with the actual value. And then finally the rule number 6 is the command substitution rule. Here essentially we use the square brackets to delimit the command. One thing to note in command substitution is nesting of commands are okay, and then everything including the square brackets is replaced by the command return value. So this is another key thing, key learning from this one. So you can use this kind of method to actually do the command substitution and then the command replacement. So in summary, essentially, like I mean, you need to understand these 6 rules. So in this module, actually, we went through quite a bit of tickle. Mainly, we started describing the procedures. I think you have the basic understanding of the procedure, where we defined the keyword proc, and then we used the procedure name followed by the list of arguments, and then the procedure body. So there are 3 params for the proc command itself, and then once the procedure is defined, then they just behave like built-in commands. For example, you can say like sub1 3 will return value 2, and again or sub1 of 3. Sorry, this is the sub1 is the procedure name, and then the 3 is the argument here, and then sub1 of 3 returns 2, because it basically like subtract 3 from whatever, I mean 1 from that argument, and then returns the value. Then the other thing that we also saw was the arguments can have default values. For example, here decrement x and then y. Y is the another argument, so it's usually like x minus y, but the default value of that y is 1. So if you don't specify only like decrement 5, then the answer will be 4. If you say decrement, sorry, DCR 5 4, then the answer is 1. So because like the default value for the second operator is always 1 in this particular proc. So this way, like you can define multiple default conditions. So this is the first thing that we saw. Here we saw like a quick example of the problem and how it can it will work or not work. And then we started defining the scope, because we need to set the scope, and then if you use the variable inside a procedure, you need to have explicitly the scope from outside. So the way to give the scope to the variable is by using this keyword global, and then the global needs to be specified inside the procedure in order to get the transfer from outside into the procedure. One thing to note is if you don't set this x and you're just using the global x, it still does not work. You need to the global itself does not set anything for x, so that's another key thing. So you need to have that variable set outside, then you can use global to transfer that value into the procedure. So then essentially, so that's what is shown here essentially. So here the just by specifying like $1 does not mean that basically like it will get transferred. You need to make sure that it is defined somewhere else, and then you can use that inside this. And then there are two other commands essentially like upvar and level. They help you to pass some um, the names by reference. So here one quick example is implement var name, upvar one var name, and this is var. So what you can do is basically like now and then the and then we actually like set the var to $var plus 1. So now what happens is actually like I mean you can actually communicate this back to another place where this var is getting called. And then this one here denotes the level basically up to where you can actually like send this variable. So here var is only sent to the procedure that is outside of this, and then if you want it to be even higher, then you need to increment this 1 to 2 and things like that. So that's the level naming essentially. And then up level is a similar kind of thing, only for used for sending scripts from one level to the next level. So and then we saw this variable length procedure, and then we also noted like how we can use this for the both defining the positional arguments as well as non-positional arguments. So how do we do this? This is something that we saw, and in this simple example actually we can go into more details. So and then we also like had some simple examples to denote those things, and we saw like how we can document these procedures. And then we also covered some little bit of error handling as to what kind of what is the error info and things like that essentially. So we can use this error info to, and then you can keep track of what is going on basically. So with that, I'm also like I want to give you like some coding guidelines as to what you can do. So here couple of things that you want to make sure. One is always use comments to match closing braces. So because the braces are quite important, so like when you close any brace, make sure that you put that comment out there so that whoever is reading, they know that they have to close the comments. The other one is need to add, you can add the echo commands wherever possible. So this also helps to provide some feedback, and that by that people will understand what you are trying to do and what is actually printed out in those commands in the commands. Then make sure that you test your code in small chunks, and then always use this error info. That is what we saw in the debugging procedure. And then finally we also saw like the 6 rules for effective tickle coding. The rule number 1 is to understand the concept of white space, which separates the command name and all the arguments, and then the new lines and the semicolon separate commands. So this is a very simple one, just understand this one. And then the rule number 2 is that grouping, essentially the curly braces, which prevents all the substitutions by tickle interpreter. So here the key thing is also this tickle interpreter that I mentioned. And then for the soft grouping, essentially use the quotes for sort grouping. This actually substitutes all the variables essentially, and but there is no nesting of the quotes. Also, the rule number 5 is to use the backslash substitution. So how that works, that's the key thing here. You can review this one. And then actually sorry, this is the rule number 4. This should be rule number 4. And then rule number 5 is the variable substitution, which is by using the dollar. Here the variable is whenever we specify the variable name with the dollar, that variable name is replaced by the value of the variable. And then finally the last rule is the command substitution, which is using the square brackets, and the square brackets delimit the command. Here we can nest multiple commands essentially. That means that you can start like this xpr and then blah blah blah, and then start another one foo, and then foo 2 blah blah blah, and then you can close all of them. So this is allowed. This thing is allowed. So I think this basically has most of the basic tickle programming is all covered in these modules. We will look at some of the advanced concepts from tickle in the next lecture, and then after that we will start looking into TK as the next one. Okay, thank you very much. Bye.